I'm just gonna rant a little bit, okay? Because this is important. I just can't be bothered with the current state of trying to find housing, okay? Back in the day, when I first got out on my own and I started looking for apartments, okay? This was probably 20 years ago, but this, you know, this is what it used to be. Okay, now I'm not even dealing with the pricing, okay? Because that everybody knows everything is more expensive now. Let's not even discuss that part of it. But here's my issue. You used to could go look for an apartment, okay? You would go to the leasing office or whatever, and they would have all kinds of specials, move-in specials, trying to get you to move in. Now, no move-in specials whatsoever. Okay. Then when you would go and look at the place, they would have model homes, right? Okay. I'm in a situation where I'm not looking at apartments. So model homes aren't really relevant, but at the very least, they would make efforts to, you know, paint the place a decent color, to, you know, have it be cleaned, freshly cleaned, the carpets cleaned, things like that, smelling halfway decent, and that kind of thing. Now, when you get ready to go look for a place, the place is filthy. I have had twice where they have shown me the place and it literally has not even been cleaned from the previous tenant. Who does that? Who does that? So the place is not clean. Now, okay, that's one thing, which is bad enough. I've also, all of the other places that I've looked at, with the exception of one place, they have cleaned it and it's not clean. Like, it's just not clean. There is hair in like the bathroom drawers. There is the stoves are not clean. The appliances are not updated. The cabinets are like 1950s. And like, if you're going to do that, that's okay, whatever. But your rental price needs to reflect the fact that you're not putting any energy and effort into fixing up your place. If you're just trying to collect rent, like, and you're not willing to put any, you know, fixtures and updates to your place, then why are you charging 5 and 6 times what it used to be to rent a place? Like, no. And so I went to go look at this place, okay? Now, this place was a price that was a steal, okay? And most of the time, like, I've gotten really good at looking to see, you know, because a lot of times if a place is too cheap, it's a scam, okay? And so I looked at this one to see, okay, what was the rent, you know, previously in previous years, and what did the house sell for, okay? And so in this particular case, the house sold for an amount that means that they've owned the property for long enough to where their mortgage is not massive. And so because their mortgage is not massive, they can afford to rent the place for a lot cheaper than what rents are going right now. Because one of the reasons why the rents are so high is because mortgages are so high. The mortgage rates have gone up so much to where people are borrowing money. Basically, they're buying. First, they had the housing boom where people were able to sell houses for way more than what they're worth. And so because that happened and people were going around just, you know, buying houses, trying to do Airbnb every 5 minutes, but not considering the fact that the house is not remotely worth that. Now they're having to rent the houses for way more than they should be renting them for because the mortgage is massive. And so a lot of times when you look at these properties and you'll look at what the home sold for, it's not necessarily that the landlords are price gouging. It's the fact that they have to charge that amount because they overpaid for the house. Neither option is going to work for me because I'm not stupid, so I'm not doing that, but I can understand. There's a difference between someone who's just being greedy and someone who is just trying to make a living. So I can, I understand. Am I going to pay those rates? No, but I understand. So this particular place, I could tell by how much the house sold for that was why they were charging the rent so cheap, because they were able to have their, it was still double their mortgage, right? And so I could understand this. I was like, okay, I'm going to go look at this place because, it's just important to me that I'm not overpaying for stuff. Like, I'm not want to overpay for stuff. I just don't think it's wise and I don't want to do it. And so I was like, I'm going to go look at this place. A place was the type of place where I knew that I would probably have to fix some things up. And by fix, I mean cosmetically. I'm not talking about, tearing down walls and stuff like that. I knew that it would probably be, okay, it needs a little bit of paint, some little, some things that will make it to my liking and to my taste. Okay. It has on there that they're going to have an open house on 2 particular dates. Okay. So I can tell that the house is being listed by a realtor, which is something else I do not like at all. Okay. I don't like that they're starting to have all the places as a part of property management places, and they're hiring realtors to show the properties. I don't like the situation, but nevertheless, that's we're not gonna get off on that tangent. So it says that you are to apply on site at the open house. And I'm thinking to myself, who does on-site applications, like paper applications? Who's doing that? Who is doing that? So I'm rolling my eyes, but I'm just like, whatever. It's their place, whatever. So because you're asking to do an on-site application, I like to be prepared. I like to make sure that I have my ducks in a row and my I's dotted, my T's crossed. And if I do like the place, because it is a steal, I want to make sure I have everything I need. Because I'm self-employed, my situation is different than other people's situation. And so I took it upon myself to call the number and to ask the lady, hey, I just want to make sure everything's still good. You're still doing open house. Is there anything that I need to bring? Okay. This lady answers the phone and I ask her my questions, and she says to me, well, the listing says that the open house is at this time. That's all she says. She does not answer any of my questions. That's all she has to say. I'm just like, why do you have to be so rude? Why? What purpose is there for you to be rude and you're trying to get people's money? I don't understand that. So I hang up the phone and I plan to go to this open house, but I'm already rolling my eyes because I'm just like, who does that? So, all right. So the day of the open house, I passed the place because there's no signs. Normally, when you go to an open house, there are signs for several blocks away with arrows pointing to where the open house is going to be. This place is in the subdivision and you have no houses. I mean, no signage whatsoever. So how would people even know that this is the open house? So it's in a subdivision type place where there's a whole bunch of different street names. And so it's easy to get lost, and it's easy to, think that the number is referring to, the right street, and it's actually referring to a different street. So I almost got lost, couldn't find the place. Okay. So I finally find a place, we park and we go in. Okay. Again, there's no signage, so I don't know for sure if I'm in the right place. So I knock on the door and, she comes to the door and she just stares. She doesn't say hello. She doesn't say, come on in, welcome to the open house. She just stares. And so I have to say, hey, I'm here for the open house. Am I in the right place? And she says, yep. That's it. Just, yep. And I'm just like, so I had my mom with me, and my mom says, so do we just look around on our own? Or, cause I mean, bruh, what kind of open house is the realtor not showing the house? What is happening? I feel like I was in a Twilight Zone. So she says, yeah, it's an open house. That's what open house means. Really? What are you talking? Y'all, I realize, okay, I'm 40 years old. I realize I'm getting old. But back in my day, people didn't treat people like this. This is a mess. So at this point, my mom is disgusted, okay, and rightfully so, okay. Like, oh, well, I didn't know, if you were going to show us around or anything. That's why I was asking. Because my mom, she just tries to play it off, but you can tell she's steaming mad, and rightfully so. And so we go look around, and again, the place is not clean, okay. It's ish clean, but it's not clean. Now, mind you, okay, before this, okay, we go in there, and after my mom asks her about, can we go look around or whatever, and she just says, that's what an open house is, and has an attitude. So we get ready to go and look around, and then she snaps her fingers and says, shoes. I'm sorry, what? Shoes? That's all you have to say? She makes us take off our shoes, okay, which I had a problem with for 2 reasons, okay? Number one, this house is dirty, okay? You take your shoes off when the house is clean. But I'm rolling my eyes and I'm like, this is dirty. Okay. The other reason I had a problem with it is that she was not asking us to leave our shoes at the door on the inside. Okay, this is January and it's freezing cold, and she asks us to leave our shoes outside on the porch. Really? Y'all, I say, this is a mess. This is an absolute mess. So she proceeds to sit on her phone and be on her phone the entire time. She does not tell us anything about the features of the home, the amenities, what's included, how would we interact with the landlord, who's responsible for helping you if anything goes wrong. Nothing. This lady does not tell us anything. Absolutely nothing. We had to go look at the place on our own. Needless to say, that place was a no-go. Okay. Now here's what I want to say. I was talking to the Lord about this because I was like, Lord, this is an absolute mess and I just cannot be bothered. This is not it. Okay. What is happening? And I don't like it. And this is the problem. So you guys know that I run a company called Freedom Through Divorce, and I help women of faith who have been impacted by a toxic marriage and divorce. And one of the things that is just I am very passionate about is being able to help women like myself who have housing problems, because there's not a solution for people in my particular situation. It's one thing if you're like super low income, or if you've dealt with, an extreme domestic violence situation or something like that. But someone who is in my particular situation, who isn't super low income, but is too low of an income to be, to qualify for anything in terms of, any kind of government assistance or anything, but also somebody who is, not wanting to be on government assistance, somebody who, just needs a foot in the door, right? Because there's so many women of faith who, they may have been knocked down, but they are go-getters, they're hard workers, and they just need a break. They don't need you to babysit them or to take care of them or do any of that. They just need a break. And so it's so incredibly difficult this day and age to find somebody who's willing to give you a break. It is just, and so one of the things that bothered me, because I was just thinking about that, I was like, Lord, here this landlord is in a position to be able to really help somebody, right? Because that property, because they're in a position to have paid, a smaller amount for the mortgage. The mortgage was very reasonable, and they were really in a position to be able to really help somebody. But they just weren't willing to put in the effort to truly help, right? If you're wanting to really help somebody, it doesn't take much to, like, update the cabinets, or and not even update like in replace them, just a coat of paint, right? Some just replace the refrigerator. Like, I'm not talking about you ripping out walls and putting in stainless steel appliances. Like, I'm just saying update it to where it looks like you spent some money on it. Like, you're getting rent from someone, so you want to be able to spend something on it. And so here this landlord is in a position to really help somebody, and you hire a realtor who has the worst attitude on the planet, that's gonna like scare off anybody that is gonna be a good tenant. Because at the end of the day, you attract who you are. If someone comes to your property and they are treated like that, and they still rent your property, more than likely they're not going to be the type of tenant that's going to be long term, and that's going to really take care of your property and treat it like it's their home. If you're willing to treat them like that, more than likely they're going to treat your property like that. And so you're in a position to really help somebody that might need to be able to rent a place in a good neighborhood. Yeah, you're not willing to even do the bare minimum to make sure that the house is fixed up. So that bothered me. The other thing was, when I got out on my own, I got out on my own when I was 18, and I got my own place. I couldn't be bothered to live on campus when I went to college, and I was just like, I just don't want to do this whole roommate situation. And so I got a place pretty quick, and I have had to get apartments a lot in my day, and I've had to move a lot of my day, and I've done apartments, I've done houses, I've done it all. And I know from experience that, just like with a job, right? If you don't have high standards coming in, you're setting yourself up for failure. Because we're not talking about something that's small. We're talking about your home, right? You want to be pretty daggone particular, because especially when you're a renter, your landlord is the be all end all. Okay, anytime you need any help with anything, anytime anything breaks, that landlord is going to be responsible for fixing it. That landlord is going to be responsible for the upkeep. That landlord is going to be responsible for deciding if your rent increases, right? That's pretty important. Now, granted, you're not wanting to rent forever. You want it to be get to the point where you're not renting anymore. But while you are renting, you don't want to be dealing with a landlord that is making your life miserable. Okay. And I've rented a lot of places, and I know what a bad landlord is. And I also know what a good landlord is. And I'm telling you right now, I'm not signing up for a bad one for nobody. I'm not doing that. At my last place, before we got evicted, I told you guys a story. I owned the place and then sold it to get the money for the court case, and then rented it to a investor. Okay, the investor that I rented the place to was one of these types of investors, like this guy or whoever from this place that I went to go see. He never put any money into fixing that place. Okay, never. And so when I owned the property, it was in pristine condition. Okay, because I was the owner. I had the one of the air conditioning units replaced, because it was an upstairs and downstairs, and it had a unit upstairs and a unit downstairs. I had the upstairs unit replaced. I had the toilet replaced in the master bathroom. I had a lot of work done to the house. I had plank floors put in there, and the carpet ripped up. Like, I had fixed the place up. Okay. And so when I sold the place and rented it from him, it was not long before that place was not in good condition. And I was stuck having to rent this place from a landlord that wasn't willing to put any work into it. The microwave broke, and it was like, just like sent somebody to like band-aid it, and it was just like it was broke again like the next week. And we had an issue with flooding upstairs, and man, that thing flooded. It was still flooding when I got evicted. Literally, he never fixed the flooding issue. It would like, we flushed the toilet, and like every other time we flushed the toilet, it would flood. And it was flooding from the upstairs to the downstairs kitchen, like lighting. And so the lighting was all messed up, and I was like, it was just a mess. And I recorded and everything, and it was just like he wasn't willing to fix it. I know what it's like to have to deal with the landlord that's not willing to fix the place up. And I don't care how nice it looks when you get ready to move in. If you got a landlord that just wants to collect your rent money and doesn't want to put any money into it, you're going to be living in a slum pretty quick. And so I was just really irritated about the fact that this is what's happening, that everybody's so selfish. Nobody, when you're doing business, you want it to be give and take, right? You want to be able to receive money, but you want to give a service, right? It needs to be give and take. If you're going to be a landlord, you need to give a safe and clean and, good environment for your tenant so that, it's worth the money that they're paying you. I know that, you got some crappy tenants out there. I get that. Okay. I understand, but that doesn't give you a license to be a terrible landlord. It just does not. Okay. Two wrongs don't make a right. You can't do that. Like, don't be that person. So I was talking to the Lord, and I was talking to him just about, 2025 and the goals for 2025 and, what he's saying for this year. And one of the things that he was saying was,
okay, so the Lord gave me the parable of the talents. And so that's Matthew 25:14-30. And I'm going to read the English Standard Version. For it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now after a long time the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He also, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But for the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
When you're reading that story, most of the time people focus on the person with the least talents, because that's the person that was called wicked. Okay. So basically what's happening here is the person with the least amount of talents is afraid. And that person they basically have a poverty mindset. And a poverty mindset is a mindset that focuses on, it's like a glass half empty person. The person that can only focus on the fact that the little bit of money that I do have is not enough, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. That's all. That's as far as their mindset will take them, is how can I keep from losing the money that I have, and they want to make more, but they don't have the skills to make more in a way that is multiplying, if that makes sense. When you want to building wealth, you learn to attain money in a way that is multiplying, that multiplies what you have. When you have a poverty mindset, you're only able to attain money in a way that adds to what you have. So what that means is adding increases at a slower rate than multiplying, meaning that more than likely you're going to need to spend the money to deal with your expenses at the same rate that you're gaining it, if that makes sense. So what happens is you never actually gain wealth, right? You never actually make any more money, because the amount that you got coming in is equal to the amount that you got going out. And it's because when you receive money, is at a rate that's addition and not multiplication. And so wealth, the people that have the higher amount of talents, these are people who have the skills to generate wealth at a multiplication rate, meaning that they know how to generate money at a faster rate than they can consume. So they can actually build wealth. Now, this is important because in this parable, the person with the poverty mindset is being selfish, and they don't understand that they're being selfish. They're being selfish because their mindset is only focused on themselves. It's only focused on their fear. They're afraid that they're going to get in trouble if they lose the money that they have. So that's all they care about is themselves. Now, they're not trying to be selfish, and they're not, maliciously selfish, but they're selfish because that's all they can think about is themselves. Okay. And so because of that, they don't even try to add money, more or less multiply it. Okay. But the ones with the higher number of talents, they are not selfish because they're thinking, how can I make more money for my master? That is the key here, is the mindsets of the two. Okay. One of them, it can only think about themselves, and one of them is thinking about, how can I make more money for my master? Okay. Now, this is very important. Okay. Because when I was talking to God about this situation that I was having with the rents, because it wasn't just what I dealt with that day. This is something that I've been seeing just across industries, is that people have become incredibly selfish because they're so afraid. Again, fear of this, the one with the smallest amount of talents, fear. They're so afraid that somebody's going to take advantage of them or try to take advantage of them or screw them over or whatever, that they're becoming selfish. And so they don't care about helping someone else anymore. They just care about trying to cover their own behinds. They don't want to be taken advantage of. So you got these landlords who they've been burned by tenants in the past. And so now they're just being terrible people because they're so afraid they're going to get burned again. So they're doing the least amount of work that they can to these properties. And they've lost the art of just treating people the way you want to be treated. Why is this important? This is important for two reasons. Number one, this is the year of the wealth transfer. Okay? This is the year of the wealth transfer. If you look at, what's been going on with the major CEOs and the major companies, and, so many of them are being brought down, and, there is a wealth transfer happening. And we're in this season of God wanting to take the wealth of the wicked and give it to the righteous. Okay. And so God is actively getting ready to make opportunities for his children to attain wealth. Okay. But here's the thing. Okay. If your mindset is going to be the mindset of fear, that you're afraid you're going to get taken advantage of and you're going to lose the wealth that you have, and a mindset of selfishness that you're just trying to cover your own behind, then you are going to end up like the one with the least amount of talents, being called wicked. That's what you're going to end up being. You're going to end up taking the wealth that you have now and hiding it in the ground. Because when you're talking about God's system of finances, it does not operate like that. You have to sow. And you're not sowing if you're doing the bare minimum. It's like I was talking about. If you got a property, God's blessed you with a property, and you are renting that property out, and you are getting quote unquote income from that property, but you are not doing anything to update that property, you're not sowing. You're not sowing. And so you're just like the servant with the least amount of talents. So you're not going to be a part of this wealth transfer because you're hiding your wealth in the ground because you're no longer sowing. This is important. I'm telling you guys this. Listen, as somebody who has not seen the manifestation of my wealth just yet, okay, this is not a word for me right now. But it is a word for you guys that already have wealth. I'm telling you right now, you guys that already have wealth and you have been burned and you're letting the world turn you into the servant, the wicked servant that is not sowing anymore, that's so busy trying to make sure that you don't get taken advantage of. Don't let the world turn you into that, because you're not going to be eligible for this wealth transfer. Because you're probably already looking around thinking, God, what happened? You blessed me before and now you're not blessing me anymore. Look at the fruit. Do you have any fruit? Can you point to anything that you have helped anybody? Because that is how God's system of finances works. The more you help people, the more money he gives you. That's how it works. The minute you've proven to God that if he gives you wealth, it is going to trickle to the least of these, he's going to give you more. Because he's concerned not just about you, he's concerned about all of his children. And if he knows that you're going to be a vessel for him to get help to the rest of his children, he will give you more. But if you have stopped the flow up because you're afraid of getting burned, you're going to end up with the one with the least amount of talents. So this is a word to investors. This is a word to those that have wealth. This is a word to those who have been believing God that he would take the wealth that you do have, that you have amassed, and increase it. You are going to have to sow, and sow as in help people. You're going to have to help people. It's not your job to police what those people do with your help. It's your job to hear God and to do what he says. And so if you help somebody and they take advantage of your kindness, that's God's problem. If he told you to give it, then you're not worried about what happened to it after that. This is important because there are so many people who God has given them some wealth, but they're wanting exponentially multiplication type wealth, but they don't want to sow that kind of seed. And there are people that God is putting businesses and ideas upon their hearts that will help people, but they don't have any money. And so he wants to be able to join those that have the wealth with those that have the heart for helping his people. And that's how he's going to give you that exponential wealth that you've been asking for. He needs you to sow it. Sow it into someone that doesn't have the finances, but that you know is going to multiply that seed sown and help people. What's happening is, we talked about this before when we were talking about that series on church. So many people, when they tithe to their local church. But these churches have proven time and time again that they have not been good stewards over those funds. And so, yes, we are still mandated to tithe, but where we tithe, God is getting ready to change that. He's getting ready to change that, because there are so many people even now that they no longer give their tithes to the local church. I know I don't. I do not give my tithe to the local church. I give my tithe to where God spoke to me to give it to. And he has given me a very specific ministry to give it to that I know does exactly what thus saith the Lord. And they multiply that seed sown because they are helping people. And so I encourage you as a believer to find somewhere where they are helping people, where you can literally see them helping people. So I just wanted to say that, because a lot of us, it's important. Because like I was saying, I have not seen the manifestation of the wealth just yet for me. But this is an important word, because as soon as I do, this is something that I'm going to be very, very focused on and very, very intentional about. Because when you're managing God's finances, you want to make sure that your heart is a heart of helping people. And so even if you don't have the finances to help people, you can help people with your time. You can help people with your talent. I'm doing this YouTube channel. Like, you can always find a way to help people, but that has to be your heart posture. It can't be what's in it for me all the time. So I'll give you an example of that with me. When I lost my job, I have another business that I do, database development. And so if you don't know what that is, it basically just means information that companies collect. They have to put that information somewhere, and they usually put it in a database. And so I have had a career, 2 decades of being a data analyst, where I'll take all that information and try to make sense out of it so that companies can use that information to make better business decisions and that kind of thing. And so over the course of me doing that, I started creating databases. And so I create databases for companies, and that's what I do. Okay. So my company, I created started as a freelancer, just kind of doing work on the side. When I was a data analyst, making databases on the side, and just have been doing that on the side pretty much my whole career. And so when I lost my job this past time, because of what I had to deal with the child custody situation and having a record, because of, again, y'all know the whole story, I knew that I would not be able to find something in my industry as a contractor like I used to. And so the first thing I decided was, I'm going to just try to turn the freelancing into something full time. Okay. So when I got ready to do that, I was, kind of just, getting ready to revamp the business, right? Getting ready to redo the business plan and redo the website, and just try to get higher end clients and that kind of thing. Well, as I was starting to put together business packages and my pricing and stuff like that, I really wanted to focus on high-end clients. I knew that I had the capacity to get high-end clients that would pay $10,000, at a time. And I really, really wanted to focus on those clients because, y'all know my story, y'all know my situation, and y'all know that, financially, I have been in a rut for a long time. And so I wanted to focus exclusively on high-end clients. So as I was getting my stuff together to try to get these high-end clients, a client came to me. And so back in the day, 20 years ago, when I first started my career, I started out as administrative assistant, and then moved up to executive assistant. And so I used to do that, 20 years ago. And I got out of that because it didn't pay enough. I knew that I was capable of making more. And even though I was working very hard, because administrative assistants and executive assistants, they work very hard, but they're just in an industry where they're just not valued financially. It's kind of like with teaching. Teachers work really hard and they deserve more than what they're getting paid, but they're just in an industry that they don't value you enough to pay you what you're worth. And so that's kind of how it was with administrative assistants. I worked really hard and just had a really hard time getting paid what I was worth. And so I got out of that industry and started being a data analyst. Okay. So this was a client that needed skills that were more administrative heavy. It wasn't administrative assistant. It wasn't quite that kind of position, but it was something that I did a long time ago that I got out of because it didn't pay enough. So in the beginning of when I started freelancing, I was doing administrative assistant work because that I didn't really know how to do the data analyst stuff for clients. Like I didn't feel confident enough to be able to do that for clients. Like I did the work at my job, but it wasn't, I didn't feel comfortable, like not having anybody to help me or anything like that with that kind of stuff yet. So I started out doing administrative work. And so what I ended up doing was I ended up like doing kind of like business coaching, business consulting, more on the administrative side. So kind of like business coaching for like CEOs type situation, but more of an administrative person, so the person that will kind of like execute the stuff. And so I had done that for 2 clients. This was like 10 years ago. And in both situations, it really helped the client, but it really burned me out because they needed so much help because it was like startup type stuff. And so they needed a lot of help. And I was trying to do that and work full time, and it was just too much. I can't help you run your business and run mine, right? And so it was a very intense help that they needed, and I couldn't do that as a business owner, right? I couldn't take clients that needed that. It was more so you need somebody that's works for you full time doing this type of work. And I would get into those kinds of positions with clients where it was what really would have been a give and take for both of us would have been for them to work with me and have me get, understand what they needed and then train someone to do that. That's what would have been a good give and take. It was not sustainable for somebody that's a business owner, right? So, because I was trying to run a business. And so, but what would happen is I was so good at the job, they never wanted to transfer to nobody else, right? So they all just wanted me to do it forever. And so I would get burnt out and I would end up having to quit. I would end up having to say, hey, I'm not going to be able to take you on, continue you as a client, XYZ date, I'm basically pushing you out of the nest. And so I just didn't like that feel to it. And I also didn't like the pay because it was all consuming, but it wasn't paying, what I wanted it to pay for as much work as I was putting in. So I got out of that kind of work and moved on to the data analyst work. And, that was 10 years ago. Okay. So fast forward to when I lost my job and I'm trying to get these high-end clients, and a client comes to me and that's the kind of work that they need. And I am thinking to myself, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to. I don't feel like it. I'm just not going to do that. But the Lord told me that this person needed help. I'm sending you to help them, and I need you to take them on as a client. So I did. And that client has made me more than any of my other clients. Okay. And it has been the least amount of work on my end than any of my other clients. And so it just has been a God match, if that makes sense. It's helped me out tremendously because it came to me at a time in my life when I really needed like no stress. Like I could not handle a whole bunch of stress. And so even though I was planning on going after these big ticket high end clients, those clients would have been so much stress. And I had just got finished going through this child custody case. I did not have the capacity to deal with a whole bunch of stressful clients. And the Lord knew that. And so by the grace of God, I took on that client, even though it was, was not paying what I wanted to receive. The client needed my help, and the Lord told me to help them. And in turn, it ended up being more lucrative than what I thought it would have. And so I said all that to say, this is what the Lord is, the word the Lord has for me to give a lot of you guys for 2025 is that just like the parable of the sower, you're going to have to steward God's wealth by helping God's people. And a lot of you are looking for investment opportunities, but you're trying to find those opportunities like the world looks for them. The world looks for what's going to make me the most money, what's going to be the biggest upside, and it's not looking for a give and take. It's looking for selfishness. It's looking for what's in it for me, and I don't care about what's in it for anybody else. And that's not the way God runs his kingdom, and that's not the way God, that's not the way finances work in his kingdom. If you're wanting God to bless you, you're going to have to do it his way. And his way, if you truly are looking for wealth, you're going to have to be willing to bless his people and help his people, even when it looks like it's not going to help you in the way that you think it is. Because just like it was with that client, I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to take this client on because I don't want to be stressed out. I want to make more money. I don't want to do that kind of work. It was all about me. And the Lord had me take that client on anyway because he was concerned about that client needing my help. And so God provided for me and helped that client. So this is what God is wanting his people to get and to understand, because to do a wealth transfer, but he needs us to understand how his finances work and understand that he is interested in healing this world. And the way he needs to do that is that we've got to be willing to be helpers of one another. We have to. If we're not willing to help one another, then we can't expect things to get better. And if we're not willing to sow, then we can't expect to reap. If you're not willing to sow and to help God's people, then how are you going to become the person with the most talents? So that's what the Lord wanted me to say. If you are interested in sowing in, helping me and helping the project that God has put on my heart, then please click the link in the description. I'd love to have your help. In the meantime, we are going to be starting to meet some of our goals for 2025. I am going to be taking you guys along the journey of me doing that and starting to proceed with some of those goals, and hopefully we can start making, meeting our goals together. So thank you so much for watching. God bless you on your journey to freedom.